The Roman Empire was founded in 873 AD when a German carpenter lost a bet to a Sicilian tailor while drinking in a Chicago bar. You'd be pretty pissed if your child, your niece, your neighbour come and told you some rubbish and that their teacher was told them this. And so people who put themselves into positions of authority. So whether you're making a YouTube video or whether you become a teacher, you choose to do this and you present yourself as someone who knows what the hell they're talking about. Well, a lot of people don't know what the hell they're talking about and are more than happy to ask for money and to promote ignorance and false facts going around. This is an issue of truth. This is essentially, it's not a nitpicking issue about archaeology or in ancient history or technology. It's an issue of truth and credibility. And so it's important to be as accurate as you can. And if you present yourself as someone who has some information which can be passed on to younger generations, you have a duty, a responsibility. It's a moral issue. So laughingly, the Billy Mays of ancient history. So wait a minute. So wait a second. The strongest crane in the existence of the Roman Empire can only lift 6.6 tons. No, absolutely untrue. And again, if you present yourself as someone who knows the facts and to teach, well, and then if you also question other people at the same time and say you present yourself as some sort of honest broker, but the mainstream establishment and other people is all suppressing and suppressing information. Well, if you're feeding false information and you're not including vital information in your presentations, how are you any better than Zoe Hawass? Okay, so it's like like we say here, this is a boomerang. You throw it and you got to be careful where you throw it because it can come back and hit you. So it's just not true that this is the largest Roman crane in existence. It shows a thorough ignorance of lifting technology, cranes, and just in general. This is not the limit of Roman lifting technology. This is the equivalent of a modern boom crane. With all these pieces of this crane, I could rearrange them into a different, into a gantry crane or similar, and I would be able to lift many, many times the exact same weight with the exact same equipment. I've worked in transport, load restraint and lifting. I've worked in it. I've worked with some, the best people here in Australia, and they know lifting. They know load restraint. So if you tie something down, you're using the same principles of lifting something up. So whether it's rope or chain, hooks, blocks and tackles, all this, it's the same principle. It can be applied in many ways. And if you don't understand these principles, don't teach people rubbish. So this is the equivalent of a polyspassus, a modern one. It's a boom crane. This is a very specific type of crane. The largest boom mobile crane of this basic form is 1,200 ton. You'll sometimes see. Okay, let me pause a moment. This is at the Baalbek Museum, I do believe, and they show you the stone of the pregnant mother, 1,200 tons. And it's surrounded by roughly 20 cranes. So this image is telling you this is how many modern cranes it would take to lift the stone to lift 1,200 tons, doesn't matter what it is. Okay, now false facts, not only a little bit false facts, we're talking extremely false facts, because one crane could lift that. Okay, so this is this is a type of argument. This is the level of research or integrity, whatever you want to call it. This is pure BS. It's like, I don't understand how this could come about, how someone could put this forward into the public and put it into their minds. This is 100% absolutely false facts. And so back to our, so for instance, okay, where are we up to? Okay, so again, Baalbek stones and comparisons to modern technology, they don't know what the hell they're fucking talking about. This crane moved back and forward. That was the same principle. You'd lift this block up, the crane would lean down, you would lift the block up, and then it would lean back, and so that crane would lift a block from the floor and then would lift it onto the top of the columns. That's the form, so it's to lift and move. And as an example, so the maximum capacity of this crane could be a confusing thing. But at the maximum extension, it can only lift a portion of what it can lift closer to the center of gravity. If you hold a dumbbell and you hold it out sideways, you can only lift a very small amount. You can arm curl many times that because it's closer to the center of gravity. Basic physics. So using this crane as a description of maximum lifting capacity is a fundamental misunderstanding of the way that different types of crane work. And so, construction crane, the same principle. The further the weight moves away from the center of gravity, the less you can carry. This is a representation. So the lower that goes, the more it can weigh, the more that it can lift. This is an example of a gantry crane. It's more of a deadlift, and then you can use rollers or sleds to move the crane forward. But this crane lifts many, many times more than this type of crane, using all the same pieces. It's basic lifting. We have but scientific truth in regards to this. So this is the world's largest operating crane, I do believe, at 20,000 ton there in Korea. So this crane could lift all of those massive stones at Baalbek, the unfinished ones as well as the big ones on the temple itself, could all be lifted by this one crane here. But of course, they didn't have this type of material and scale back in that size. I'm not saying they did, but when people bring up as a comparison modern crane technology and then use it to further the lost high technology argument, it's either you don't know what you're talking about or you do know what you're talking about and you're being very deceptive. I can't understand how they can get some things so wrong. Did you not even read 5 minutes? Now, if you want to use Wikipedia as a source, it does help to read it. And so you see screenshots and they will reference things like this. Okay, but an interesting point. So this is the simplest form of a crane, 3-to-1 mechanical advantage. That means the energy you put in, you get 3 times as much back in the lift. It's also worth noting that when they talk about the pyramids, the 2.5 ton, on average there are larger, but on average the casing stones and the outside layer of stones on the Great Pyramid, there are 2.5 ton. When they represent that, they make 2.5 ton as if it's, you're parting the Red Sea or something. Somehow it's this incredible amount to weight. When they talk about a Roman crane, it's it's sort of impressive, but they could only lift 6 ton. Well, there's an inconsistency there, and so when they present one argument, it's sort of like blow it all up, and oh my God, it's 2.5 ton. When it's a Roman crane, well, it's only 6 ton. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's just a inconsistency there. But if you actually go into read the article, I'll explain it. I'll show you some examples. But if you actually read the rest of the article, you'll get references to the ladder and obelisk, Roman writers who describe the technology used to lift those. It literally is here in the source that they use to poo-poo Roman technology. So again, I don't understand how did you not read it, or did you not include that information? But either way, you can find it all here, and again, just unexplainable how they can get so much so wrong without doing it intentionally. But that's another thing. But what we see here, it also describes heavier cranes featured 5 pulleys, the pentaspastos, or in case of the largest one, a set of 3x5 pulleys, the polyspastos, come with, blah, blah, blah. What they're saying is that the exact same crane that had this crane here, so where's the image? So the pentaspastos was operated with a hand crank. So you're standing on the outside of the wheel turning the axle. 4 men could lift 3,000 kilos. That's what even it says in the Wikipedia article. Okay. Now, if I was to replace the crank with a treadmill, 2 people, treadwheel, 2 people now lift twice the weight. Half as many men lift twice as many weight. By adding a wheel on the other side, 4 men now lift 12,000 kilograms. All you need to do is add a wheel, double up the rope, and that problem solved. That this is unfortunately, I even see like reasonably credible sites discussing Roman lifting technology. They don't understand physics. They weren't trained in physics. They weren't trained in lifting and these types of things, and so they don't understand it. So someone will say it's 6 tons, and it gets repeated. Again, false facts. It's just not true. Just not true at all. And so, 12 men can lift 4 men can lift 12,000 kilos. Now you could keep repeating that and then doubling it up and then doubling it up again. The only limit on lifting is the rope and the frame. And so the wood, cedar, ash, and these other timbers can support 12,000, 24,000 kilos as long as you just build it strong enough. So again, this is just unbelievably lazy that people don't include this information. This is important because it puts a perspective on the technology itself. Okay, so number one, that's bunk, pure bunk, lazy or deceptive, I don't know. This is also the worst kind of crane to talk about maximum lifting capacity. Where are we? Okay, let me pause a second. Oh, interesting, Colossi of Memnon. I'll come to those because there's Roman stuff right here as well. But let me pause a moment. Okay, so the Polyspastus, that's this crane. This is essentially the IKEA of this particular form of crane. That the Roman legions would carry around with them. Armies, they were Roman engineers. The Roman soldier was also a master engineer. What they would do, how quickly they would build things is just phenomenal. Really, really inspiring stuff, and the basis for our modern world in many ways in the organization of equipment and men and etc. So this particular, this is almost like your standard version. This is like off the shelf. Okay, this is a Scorpio. It's based on an earlier Greek design of a similar. So we're using torsion springs. We have ratchets and all this, essentially some of the basics elements of clockwork. If you want to look at Greco-Roman technology, have a look at the Antikythera mechanism. So this is a standard. This is like the IKEA version of this particular item. Just like with cranes, the Romans could simply scale up these devices, and they actually did it. This reconstruction is based on descriptions of scaled up catapults and the Scorpio that the Romans would. Now they didn't carry with them this one as a standard piece, but they could make it no problem. It's they're the Romans. Do you not know? But the real magic in lifting is not the wheel and it's not the axle. It is this here. It's a series of pulleys. It's one piece of rope that's just round. So there you can see the rope's tied off, and then it just goes round and around and around a whole bunch of pulleys. It is, if you're unfamiliar with it, this device, you could call it an anti-gravity device. It's a block and tackle. We see the Romans drew them and carved them and described them. They described how to use them. They described the properties of them, Vitruvius and these other ancient Roman writers, and they did not invent them. They inherited this from earlier civilizations. This is a modern version. One person. Okay, you want to lift 100 tons and you don't have a big engine or a steam engine or gas or a electric motor. All you need to do is pull on this little skinny chain here and you can lift 100 tons. This is the principles of lifting. We see Roman depictions of this same technology. If you've seen sailing, that's a block and tackle. It's using mechanical advantage. A small man can lift or exert pressure of several times his own weight. It's depicted clearly. It's described. This is what it is. It's it's almost magic. How did they lift those massive blocks onto the columns at the Temple of Baalbek? Well, why don't you just have a look? And they literally show us how they did it. It's not a mystery. The only mystery is why you would deny it and go to such efforts to diminish Roman technology to further a narrative. Do your homework, you must, otherwise false facts spread you will. Where do you get your info? Do you even try? Zoe Hawass will use this as an example of alternative research. Just stop. Or maybe that's what you want to do.